Broadcast Pro is with Alister Chapman, who is a freelance DOP from the UK, and he's come down to Dubai just to do the F65 workshop with the regional DOPs in the Middle East. Alister, can you tell us what the USP of the F65 is and why perhaps it's different and unique from some of the other cameras in the market?
Okay, the key thing with Sony's F65 camera is the sensor. The sensor is an 8K sensor, so it has much higher resolution than any other current camera on the market. From that 8K sensor, we derive a 4K image. So the resolution is 4K. We're not talking about 4K of pixels, we're talking about actually 4K image resolution. So the pictures have incredible detail that's just not there with any other camera. So you can see every blade of grass in a field, every bit of texture on a wall or brickwork and things like that. So it's a really amazingly detailed image. As well as the 4K image, you also have a 16-bit linear raw workflow. So that means that you can capture highlights and dynamic range much more with much more accuracy. If you're using something like a log workflow, then the highlights are actually compressed. So if you overexpose a little bit, I'm not saying everything's clipping or limiting, but if you overexpose just a little bit, it's really hard to grade that to get a natural image because your highlights and the brighter parts of the image are compressed. But with the linear raw workflow, there is no compression at all. So even if you have overexposed by mistake, you can still in the grade bring that detail, that highlight information back out of the image. In fact, the F65 is quite hard to overexpose it. If you shoot with it correctly, it's really hard to overexpose it.
But isn't storage an issue then? You need to have a DIT always on.
Yes, realistically, if you're working with a camera like the F65, you are going to want a DIT or somebody on set that can manage your data. It does produce a very large amount of data. Because it's raw data though, it's not as much data as if you were making DPX files or OpenEXR, something like that, because raw actually is slightly smaller file size. But it is still a lot of data. It will need managing either on set or somewhere close to the set so you can get your material back to them and they can offload that material. But because of the very, very high speed of the cards, up to 5.5 gigabytes per second, you can copy that material incredibly quickly. It's normally around about real-time workflow, so even if you've shot an hour's worth of material during the day, it's only going to take you about an hour or a little bit longer to archive and back up that material. It's not terribly slow. It's manageable.
What about the rest of the workflow? I mean, I've heard that the post-production can be a bit challenging.
Well, any 4K workflow can be challenging because you are dealing with a lot of data and you're dealing with big files. F65 RAW though, the Sony tools that Sony have hook into the graphics processors in the computers very well, and I can play back F65 RAW on a 13-inch Mac straight away without processing it. So it's actually quite easy to work with. Yes, they're big files, but to actually play it back and to process it is quite simple, it's quite straightforward. And there are plugins coming for Premiere, for Avid, for all the usual edit tools, Resolve. Everything else, all the post tools, they work with it now already. It's quite easy to use.
So you are saying it works with all the industry standard post-production tools.
It's at the moment the editing support is still a little bit limited for the full resolution files. But to be honest, you wouldn't do your edit with the full resolution files anyway. You'd make proxies first. The DIT on set or would make proxies, and there are tools for doing that. You can do that with Resolve. Resolve will make proxies. Yoyata will make proxies, Assimilate Scratch, they will make proxies. These all work with F65 now. In the future there'll be more and more third-party support coming, and then in your final stage, when you're doing your colouring, your grading, you can use DaVinci already, you can use Baselight, the tools are already there to work with F65.
As an independent DOP, would it be correct to say that the F65 is sort of competing with the Red on some level? So what would you say are the major differences? I mean, if you wanted to sort of highlight the differences between the two cameras.
Obviously, F65's main competition is Arri Alexa and Red. Arri Alexa is a very good camera, very well regarded, but it's only a 2K camera. can never do 4K.
4K.
So if you're doing anything for a very big screen, for the cinema, then F65 will hold up much better when it's projected on the big screen.
Right.
The other advantage is if you have 4K, you can crop into 4K to extract 2K from it. So it allows you to reframe in post-production.
Right.
So that gives you a lot more scope. The other camera it's up against is Red, and Red's a good camera. You know, it's definitely a place in the market, but it's not for everybody. Red. I personally, I'm not a big fan of Red. The workflow is actually slower. You have to do a lot more processing. The DIT needs a proper workstation, a 12-core Mac with the Red Rocket cards in to process the material. It's not real time. It's quite slow. Whereas F65, the DIT only needs a laptop. You can do it with a MacBook Pro, and you can manage the material and deal with it. And there's also the backup and support. You buy something from Sony, you know they are a video manufacturer, been around for a long, long time now. They know how to do this stuff, and they do it very, very well.
Excellent. Thank you, Alister.